Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. I hope that you're having a sensational week as we move closer to the weekend. You know, the self love journey is a journey that you have to put in some work. When you don't put in the work, then you find that there's a lack of healing going on. When there's a lack of healing that goes on, then you have the same people, I'll say, practicing deception against themselves, because if you don't heal yourself, if you don't do the work that it takes to begin to love yourself, you cannot love others. And if you can't love others, you end up sacrificing yourself by making the same mistakes. Let's label this one Sister, Sister. So you have two sisters. One sister is taught how to sew, and then the other sister is taught how to sew too. There's a difference in age, however, but the mother spends a lot of time teaching both girls how to sew. She wants her daughters to be excellent homemakers, should they choose to be that, and she wants them to be able to have a nice family, and she would love to be a grandmother one day. So she invests a lot of time teaching these girls how to sew. One daughter is always taking a shortcut, and it annoys the mother because she really wants her to do better. But the daughter continues to take shortcuts because she really doesn't want to do it, to be quite honest. The other sister, she takes a long time to do things because she wants it to be perfect. She wants to impress her mother. She wants to be proud of her work. So they continue the same cycle throughout their lifetime. But one of the sisters is able to have children, and she's able to have children. She could just basically look at her husband or boyfriend and have children because she's fertile, very fertile. And the other sister she ends up having a daughter, and because what she does is she practices the dark arts, and she tries to inflict pain upon the daughter. First of all, when she gets pregnant, she gets a reading on her child, and the reader says that this daughter is going to be a light. She doesn't like that. So she tries to hurt herself so that the child will not be born. But it doesn't work because God has his hands on this one. So she has the child, and at birth, she sees the child and she becomes envious of her child. So she tries to unalive the child. She's unsuccessful. So what ends up happening is, with all the stuff that she starts doing against this child, it backfires. The child is protected. So she decides she's going to give the child to her sister. And her sister takes on the responsibility of raising this child as her own. And this is like a second time because her first daughter is not with her. She's being raised by her mom. Now, both daughters got married to leave their mother's home because that would be the only way they would be able to be freed from the mother. The mother was very strict. So both women got married early just to get out of their mother's home. Now this sister, the sister who gave her daughter to her sister, was free to go and travel as she wanted to. This time she made sure she was not going to get pregnant. But every time she saw this child, there was like this evil that would come over her because she really felt like she really didn't like this child. She felt like the child's light would annoy her, would pull out a demon within herself. She was just that angry all the time seeing this child. So the sister raises the child. As the child gets older, she spends more time at her house. But this mother figure, this aunt, who is actually the mother, is very abusive towards this child. The child wants to love her, and the child feels like she's going to show her how to love because she doesn't know how to love. This only makes her even more so angry. So let's fast forward. The child goes to college and she starts, becoming a woman. And she becomes even more so jealous of this child. Whenever she went over to the child was able to spend time with her, she would not want the child to get her hair done. She would do little things or what have you. If someone even so much as asked, she'd find excuses saying that the child didn't want anyone's hands in her head. But the truth was that she really did not want anyone looking at this child. Now, the father of this child is the real reason why she had the child in the first place. She wanted to trap him. She wanted him. But he did not want her. But he loved his child. So what she chose to do is she chose to come up with stories. And she would just take the money from that the gentleman was giving her for the child. But see, there's the thing. One of the reasons why the child had a light was because the father was a very spiritual individual. He was very spiritual, and the woman was very envious of the relationship between the two of them. So it came a time where she decided that she was going to unalive him. And because he was in the daughter's, he wrote his will out so that the daughter would have. She then sold the house that was supposed to go to the daughter who this man left the house to. Money as well. And then she and the father figure of this child decided that they were going to get together and try to go to the courts and prove that the child was unstable. Now, this is a grown woman. They wanted the person to seem unstable so that they could basically get someone who would be power of attorney or a person who would actually serve as guardian to this adult. Now, they came up with this brilliant idea in one of those family meetings. And most recently, I'll say in more recent times, they decided that this would be a good idea. So they started trying to prove that the daughter was crazy, just so they would be able to have power over the estate and everything else, before the mother decided to sell it, okay? But then they decided, you know what, it would probably be better for someone to live in this home because it's such a beautiful home. It's important that you practice self-love, that you focus on improving yourself so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you would actually try to do this to anyone, no matter who the people are, These two sisters, the older sister loved the younger sister, and she would go out of her way to make sure that she spent quality time with her sister and do all sorts of things. But they tried to do this to the sister who raised the daughter. Every time she would not agree with them, they would threaten her, and then they were actually able to make her go into the hospital once because of the things that they did to her, against her. But she would forgive them, and she would go back to being her natural self. Until one day they decided they didn't need her any longer, and they decided to get insurance out on her. Families are supposed to stick together and be supportive of each other. But when you have situations that come up and money is involved, people turn into the green-eyed monster. Almost like there was also an aunt who lived in Harlem who was getting older and not able to care for herself. She went south, and ironically, this woman ends up passing away on the daughter's birthday, on the birthday of the niece who was the one who spoke and asked that she be cared for by her daughter. I might be a little confusing, so let me clarify. In this family, there is an aunt, another aunt, a grand aunt, who was in the city, in a big city like New York. And she would always go shopping. They would go shopping together. They would she would basically needed someone to shop with her because she was coming up in age. So she would ask that that the niece would come across the bridge from, let's say, New Jersey, and she would shop with her. And sometimes the niece would take her into New Jersey and show her new stores, and they would explore, and they'd have a lot of fun. But the niece ended up having to work and not being able to have the same ability and time to visit her as often. So she continued to do her shopping and travel, but it came a time when she was coming up in age and she really needed some help. So the niece then asked her daughter to take her, for her to be able to. They had a meeting basically to tell the daughter that she would need some extra additional assistance, and her daughter had a discussion with her husband, and they welcomed her with open arms and brought her to their home. But and the niece, when she visited, she would go and visit or what have you. But somehow, it's just really ironic that on the niece's birthday is when the funeral was, and the niece had no idea. The family didn't even contact her. This again goes back into self-love. What exactly do families do when there's a lack of love or a lack of support? The family begins to break down. We must really begin to work on ourselves for self-love so that we can operate in a more loving way, so that the families don't have to worry about things like this. However, when money comes into play, people do decide to make different decisions. Now, back to the sister, the younger sister. She was getting very sick at one point in time, but not in the way that you would actually imagine. The sickness is the jealousy, where she would feel as though every time she did not have the daughter coming near her or around her, she'd make up stories and tell people in the family that, the daughter was always around her and she couldn't get rid of the daughter. But she's always do spell work, dark arts, to bring the daughter back. So she even orchestrated, they had another sister, an even younger sister than that. She had the sister, she paid the sister to make a hoodoo doll, to stick pins in this doll. Now, see, the saddest part about stories such as this is that this could actually be a true story, where people actually operate in this fashion. She was paying people to follow and stalk the daughter in the city that the daughter lived in, and wherever the daughter went. She would do all sorts of things, and even got involved with a guy who they're still trying to solve a cold case with. Somehow he cannot be seen in plain sight, because if they take a picture of him and put it online, under that what is the name of that site? myheritage.com, I think it's called. Once you put a person's picture in there on that site, they can actually pull that screen up, in the face if it matches any kind of scene that was actually pulled in any case, that person might actually be found suitable to go to jail. So I'm going around in circles with the story because there's a great deal that goes on in a family dynamic, when you look at the different individuals and you look at a story and you begin to pull back the information, you pull back the different layers of information, you'll find that in every family there's always one person who maybe people did not suspect as being so dark. That person will be dark, and that person will be trying to get away with, stealing people's property, money, and still wanting to look like the sweet old lady in the story. You see, we have to look at whenever they're doing any kind of research and they're trying to figure out a case, they have to look at every individual and they have to figure out what exactly is this person even capable of. And then when they find out that somehow people have orchestrated so many different things in one story, in one lifetime, and it seems like people are still coming up missing every time they go to another family meeting. It's just amazing. But yet very mysterious. So it's important that we practice working on ourselves with self-love so that we can love ourselves and love ourselves so much that when we do deal with others, we don't want to hurt them in any way and we want to love them the same as we would like to love ourselves. So hopefully everyone gets the message in the story and they realize that everyone does not have to practice in deception when they're dealing with family members. They can just learn to love themselves and love others. Because as I said before, when you're doing things to other people, it always comes back. So that's why so many people are worried about what is going to happen to them because they keep doing such injustices to others. So hopefully we can all learn from this story. You have a good one.